This is Abundantly Clear, a Mallory Nicole podcast designed to help you further understand the concept of abundance and put it into practice to build the business and life of your dreams. We'll be breaking barriers of conditioned belief, the standard rules of marketing, and empowering you to achieve real success, allowing you to make a greater impact and live a fulfilled, purpose-driven life with ease. Welcome to the conversation, the stories, the science, and the synergy of living life abundantly clear. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Abundantly Clear. On today's podcast, we have guest interview Gerald Rogers. Gerald, thank you for coming.
I am so excited to be here, Mallory. I love everything you create, and I just know that we're going to experience some magic. So whoever's chiming in right now, make sure you clear enough time to really dive deep with us, and I'm just excited to see where this goes.
Amazing, Gerald. Likewise to you. I've loved, our connection and building out a relationship just from Facebook. And I know that we'll be meeting in person someday in the next couple months, likely. So that's super exciting. And I just love everything that you put out and the message that you share with people. So for people that are chiming into this interview, could you give them a little insight into what it is that you do?
What it is I do, it's so interesting because it's really easy to say like the surface level, okay, this is what I do. And what I do is I help purpose-driven messengers to really dial in who they are, what they're about, and help them to share their gifts with the world and make a six-figure income or seven-figure income doing what they love. That's on the surface level. What I really do, though, just between you and me, is I help people really understand their true, divine, authentic gift on this planet. I help them really, really discover how powerful they are and to unlock that power so that they can share who they are fully with the world.
I love that. And in this, do you find that most people that you're working with are coaches, consultants? Who's kind of coming to you?
Yeah, so I do work with a lot of people. Obviously, I've been doing coaching and speaking, running my own events for the last 10 years. And so I've got so much experience that I've gained from that. So a lot of people do come to me looking for advice or input in terms of how they can grow or build their business or refine that message. And I love that. And I love influencing the influencers. And I know you do a lot of that as well. But then I also have a lot of other people come to me that they're just entrepreneurs that are driven by a purpose and they know that there's something more there for them and they're just looking for ways to unlock that.
I love that. And how did you find that you started getting into this really, you have a huge purpose-driven business. You run a purpose-driven business. So aside from maybe what that looks like structurally and tactically, it is the essence of helping people connect deeper to their hearts to show up to the world. How did you find that you stepped into that?
It's funny. I think every one of us, as we trace back the steps that led us to where we're at, it's a twisty, windy road. There's so many ups and downs and, falling down and scraping our knees and getting back up and taking a turn here and taking a turn there. And so it's been a crazy road, but and it's really hard to identify the origin of it, because I think in some way, all of us, our entire life has led us to where we're at right now. But we have these significant moments, which I call switch points. Switch point is like this like 3-inch piece of steel on a railroad that will determine which direction a train will go based on which way it's pointed, right? And these little switch points, these little points of steel, if it's just turn 45 degrees, it can alter the direction of a train by thousands of miles, and I think we all have these switch points in our life where a tiny little moment happens, an experience, a choice, someone pops into our life, an invitation. Sometimes it's a tragedy. Who knows what that is? But that switch point will drastically alter the direction of our life. And I look back and there's been hundreds of these little switch points that have led me to where I'm at. But ultimately, I think it all came from the fact that years ago, someone gave me an Earl Nightingale CD, which is my first introduction to personal development. And I remember listening to that over and over, and I got addicted to learning. I got addicted to personal development. I got addicted to this idea that I'm more than what I've reflected in the past. And it put me on this quest, really. I believe that I was a seeker at heart even before then, but that was the first time it opened me up to the world that there are, thousands, hundreds of thousands of other seekers out there that are on this path of expansion. And it put me on this path of learning. And then I think for all of us, probably for you too, Mallory, you experience that there comes a point where the student becomes the teacher, where we want to help and empower and inspire others by the things we're learning. And so after, spending years and years on my own personal development quest, there came a moment where I just felt inspired to put on my own seminar and event and to help support and lead people through that process.
I love that you reference that as to being 100 switch points, because I have people ask me that question sometimes as to, when did you know that you were supposed to be doing what you were doing in the direction that your business has gone? Like, what was the pivotal moment? And I don't really think there's this big beckon wake up call that people have of oh my God, it's all clear. I get it now. It's just the continual gradual growth. You're on this personal path and you keep getting these little, you're referencing these little switch points over and over and over again as you continue to take action and become aligned with what's going on in your head and your heart and making sure those two parts of you are communicating together. And you just keep having these little moments where you switch and you switch and you switch and the action might change a little bit. But for me, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but it wasn't so much that I woke up on a Monday and was now I get it. This is it. Here I go. It's much more of a multi-dimensional dynamic approach into the evolution of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. And I think each of these switch points represent choices and you never know when they're going to come. I mean, there's some people that might be listening to this podcast right now, and this could be one of those switch points. It could be that moment that they make a new choice. And I feel like this journey of life is a process of awakening and falling back asleep, and awakening and falling back asleep. And there's people that might have been I've decided a dozen times that I was going to write a book, but then they would put it on the shelf and they would get distracted and they would fall back asleep to that goal or dream. And then something else happens okay, now it's time. And then they fall asleep and then they wake up again. And so I think that it is this journey, these hundreds, thousands of little choices that we make along the way. And some of them, obviously, we can trace back to oh my gosh, that was the moment. That was the day that I made that choice. The moment I met Mallory, that was the day my life changed, right? There's people that will have those experiences where they can pinpoint exactly what that transition, what that choice was. But I think for a lot of us, it's this gradual shifting and turning, and one door leads to another, and then another door opens up and an unexpected person comes into our life. And what I experience is when we allow ourselves to be in the flow, when we allow ourselves to surrender and trust the universe and lean into intuition and take massive, bold action based on the inspiration that we're given, what I notice is the universe works in magical, mysterious ways. And what's interesting is sometimes those things that feel like the greatest setbacks are actually the things that thrust us forward the most, but we don't realize it unless we trust the universe. It's obviously this is happening for a reason. And when we can trust and lean into the universe, and then we open up our peripheral vision and we see all these doors and things that are opening up that wouldn't be there if things had worked out the way we quote unquote thought they should. And so I think it's really important. I know you're a big believer in this, Mallory, too. It's releasing this idea of what should be so that we can experience what really could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely resonate with everything that you're saying. For anyone that's listening to this right now, and this might be the first time that they've heard of this concept of surrendering and trusting the universe, or maybe this is what they practice in their daily life. How would you explain to someone how you still have that balance of goals, but also live from the place of intention and knowing that whatever's coming is going to come and you're open to receiving all of it?
Yeah. So I think it's a really relevant question because, and I know you and I were having this discussion in our previous conversation about this idea of between the masculine and feminine. The masculine is all about driving towards goals and being determined. It's this very Western philosophy of push, create, force, do, more, right? And it really is this aggressive forward energy, thrusting, right? The masculine energy. Meanwhile, the feminine is about allowing and receiving and attracting and manifesting and being. And I think that there's this beautiful space between the two worlds in which this ultimate space of creation happens. The true creation, like even if we talk about sex, right? Sex happens when the masculine is driving and the feminine is receiving. And it's this ultimate form of creation that happens through sexuality. And in some ways, I believe that everything in life is that act of creation where the feminine and masculine combine to bring out like this pure magic. And so the question is, as you ask it, is like, okay, how does someone allow themselves to balance or find that balance between goals and pushing and creating what you want versus receiving and surrendering to the universe? And I think it's kind of like the dance, the dance between having a goal, having a dream, having a vision, and having that desire to bring that to life. And then allowing the universe to dance with you in that creation process. Not making it wrong when the universe shows up with something that feels like it's outside of it. It's like allowing yourself to say, oh, wow, the universe is bringing me this. This is what I want. And being able to dance with that and to be able to look for new possibilities and to be able to trust that sometimes the universe has a bigger idea, a bigger vision for our life than we do. And so I believe that our dreams are given to us for a reason, and they're given to us so that we can bring them to life. But I also believe that the universe wants to support us in that and to create with us. And sometimes the universe really does have gifts way beyond our comprehension, that if we get out of our own agenda in terms of how it should look, then we open up our possibilities. And one quote that I invite everyone to write down, because I think this is really, 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 really important. It's this idea of be committed to the destination, but be flexible in the approach. Take that time to really invest in building that vision, building that dream. But it's impossible for you to know exactly how you're going to get there. You have no idea exactly. And so often in business and relationships, people want to have it all mapped out and figured out before it begins, but it doesn't work that way. You have to be committed to that destination, that vision that you're given, allowing it to be upgraded in the process. But you have to be flexible in the approach and shift and change and navigate what really shows up on a daily basis. But I'm a firm believer in goals, but I'm also a bigger believer in trusting the universe on a daily basis and looking for those inspired actions rather than the planned, methodical, structured, system for creating that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know for my business and in my own life, it's kind of when I stopped trying to put so much monetary structure around what I wanted to happen next month or the next month or what these specific numbers looked like. And maybe that number still exists, but now it's coming from a place of this is the experience I want to be having. So maybe this is the client that I want to be experiencing working with, or maybe this is the opportunity that I want to feel into. And going back to that place of intention and putting the energy into the intention usually allows for the goal to just happen in itself quicker or with even more coming than maybe from that linear approach of I want to hit this next month or I want to hit this number next month. You're going back to how you're showing up and the experience that you're having and the energy that you're putting into things that are happening around you.
Yeah, it's true. And once again, I think it's important for everyone to really define like what is the motivator or driver for each person. Because I think we're different. There are some people that literally they're driven by money. They see a financial goal, they see a specific car that they want to buy or house that they want to buy, and they set the goal for $100,000 a month or whatever that goal is. And it really motivates them to be able to track and measure and push that. I'm not one of those people. Like, I'm not going to be motivated by a dollar amount. Like, that's not what drives me. Some people are motivated by connection or by, experiences or by service and contribution. And they really are driven by how much contribution and change they're creating in other people's lives. And then for other people, they're just motivated by, wow, what excites me? What would be fun to create right now? And other people are motivated by like perfecting a process. And I think each personality has their own different motivator. For me, I'm definitely motivated by what feels fun, what feels exciting, what do I really want to create and give life to. And so my whole business is designed around just getting grounded. Wow, what is the universe wanting to create through me right now? And when I'm tuned into that, I'm unstoppable. If I'm worrying about money and how much money I'm making, I get stuck in my head and I'm dead. If you get in your head, you're dead. Like that's my motto. Like as long as I'm in my heart, really in that core part of my creation, like I'm a badass at creating amazing experiences and opportunities and attracting all the right people. But I have to be really tuned into that motivator. What is it for you, Mallory? Yeah. What drives and motivates you?
Yeah, it goes back to the experience of how I want to feel in the growth, because there have been months in my business where I might have made the money that I wanted to make, but looking back, I wasn't allowing myself to be honest with how I really wanted to experience the things that were happening. And when I started letting go of looking at goals from the place of these quotas and really feeling into, sometimes for me, it's really just going, I want to work with someone that's struggling with these types of things. And I know that overcoming these types of things are going to allow the expansion and opportunity in their life to open up and blossom. And feeling into that and just being honest with myself about what I want my business to look like and the type of people that I want to work with and the types of public speaking opportunities and engagements that come up. Feeling into what those things are, that's when they start to happen. Nothing has to be forced or pushed or out of this place of control. But that is one thing that I would love to talk about because that didn't come overnight for me. That came with a lot of personal self-growth and belief, like literally belief reprogramming, because I did used to fall very much into my masculine energy of creation and of the expectation of what things were supposed to look like, and not allowing all of this, like what we call flow and aligned action and what I call living abundantly clear. None of these things really had room to happen. How much of your experience and your personal growth do you feel like the true essence of the belief work has allowed the trajectory to change?
Explain that question to me a little bit more.
So when you have been working on your personal growth or you've been on this journey, how much of you shifting and letting go of old programming and, removing all the limiting beliefs that weren't serving you?
Yeah, got it. I mean, I think both you and I, and probably everyone that's been on this journey agree, like that internal work is everything, right? That internal work of really shifting our belief about what we can do and what's possible for us, and ultimately who we are. That's the core of everything. Like I always say, it's like you can only grow your business to the level you grow as the entrepreneur. Like you can never. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you ever read that book?
Yes, I have. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah. So in that book, he talks about this concept of self-image, and he says this one quote, and I think it's really profound. He says, "You can never outperform your self-image." And the reality is that everyone's got like this tight little box of who they believe they are and what they believe that they're capable of. And it's not until we actually expand that box, expand that perception, expand that identity, expand that self-image, that all of a sudden we can experience something different than what we've already experienced. Because as long as our identity is like, the most I will ever make is $35,000 a year, right? That's a mental block, mental like glass ceiling that people have in their mind. And so that's what they experience. They never have a job that, pays more than $15, $16 an hour. And that is where their financial thermostat is set. And it doesn't matter if money comes into their life, they will find a way to get rid of it because it's outside of that like that core identity that they have. And so obviously it requires us to stretch that perception of who we are and what we're worth, right? And then you can grow to the point where you have a 6-figure mindset where you're making $100,000. And then there's people that have 7-figure mindsets where they're making $1 million a year. And then there's some people that have $1 billion mindsets where they're making, and really it all is their internal perception of who they are and what they deserve. And the same's true in relationships and body and health. I mean, we could talk about all of this, but all transformation happens when we shift our perspective of who we believe we are. And so I noticed that for sure with me, like all the limiting beliefs I've had to overcome, you know, in terms of what I deserve and what I can do and what I can make and all of these different things, they all had to be rewritten because I grew up in a situation where I was introverted and shy and awkward, and grew up in a place where honestly, like, I don't think I even had ever bought like a full price item of clothing until I was like 32 years old, right? And I just grew up in this environment where it's just like very, very, a lot of scarcity around money, you know? And so yeah, all of that had to be rewritten to be able to get to where I'm at right now. And I think for you and I, we share a passion of helping people rewrite that identity and rewrite those beliefs.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, just for the listeners, because I know what you do, but do you find that is really the core work that you're doing with the people that are asking you for help and that are in your container of work?
People that come to me and they want to make $10,000 or more per month as a coach, right? They're just starting their business. They want to make 10,000. I wink and think, oh yeah, you think that's what you want, right? And they think that they need marketing skills. They think that they need, you know, skills in terms of, you know, building your business and knowing how to, you know, set up their merchant account and knowing how to set up their online system. They think they need all that. But in turn, I'm like, you have no idea what you need. Like it really, like, I love working with people like that because they have this perception of what is required to get what they want, but it's not the mechanics that they need. Obviously, I teach them the mechanics, but unless the mindset is shifted and unless they actually develop the mindset and the belief in themselves of being that leader, of being that mentor, of being that messenger, that leader, if they don't develop that mindset, it doesn't matter how much skills I give them. It doesn't matter how many marketing strategies they have. It doesn't matter how many online, you know, tools for their business they get. It doesn't matter how many of those mechanics they have if the mindset's not there. And so I love digging deep with them and helping them rewrite their core identity, because when the identity is there and the belief's there, it's easy to either make $10,000 a month or $30,000 a month or $100,000. Like, it doesn't matter the amount. When the mindset's there, then the mechanics are easy.
And I love that you share that, because I think sometimes people think it's a glossy perception, because I really do find that with my clients, and I would love if you could attest to this as well. If we have like a big breakthrough session, if we have a really good week, we're uncovering a bunch of stuff, they're leaving with just this different level of energy. It's really common that a client's going to come land in their lap that afternoon or the next day or whatever. It's just when you shift that trajectory of your energy, that's when things start to open up and the abundance really starts to flow in. And it's having that mindset behind the action that you're taking. It's like the water that lets the plant grow. Like the business cannot grow unless you are taking care of your belief system to the point that you're allowing yourself to not look at it through the lens of what's not possible and really continuing to break down those barriers of what is. And the more and more that you do that, the more and more that those magical things start to happen. You know, people think I'm crazy sometimes when I tell them all the stuff that's just organically come about in my life and in my business and how quickly things have happened. But every single time it goes back to what you're talking about every time.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because so much of the reality we create from is unconscious. We're just not aware until we have a coach like pointing it out and helping us uncover it. even like a simple thing, like I'm just going to invite everyone that's listening right now, just ask the simple question. What is a lot of money?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is a lot of money? And for there's some people, you know, $1,000 is a lot of money, right? For them to invest like $1,000 to work with a coach, or invest $1,000 to go to a workshop or seminar, that's a lot of money. Or if someone were to give them $1,000, that's a lot of money, right? And that's, for some people, honestly, $100 is a lot of money. But I'm really going to invite you to look at that and see if you can expand that and breathe into it and feel the energy. And what would it be like to have $10,000? You know, and imagine holding that in your hand, and rather than feeling like $10,000 is a lot of money, what if you actually saw it as a tiny amount of money? And then what if you imagine having $50,000? Is that a lot of money for you? Well, just imagine that in your hands right now. Imagine that in your arms, and imagine that feeling like a little amount of money. This is a tiny amount of money. Now stretch that even further and imagine you had $100,000. Is that a lot of money? Well, what if it was a tiny amount of money? What if $100,000 was a little amount of money? And you can keep stretching this. And I've got a friend of mine. He was a past business partner, but multi-millionaire, super successful. And it was interesting, like just hearing the way he would talk about money. $1 million was not a lot of money for him. Like it was a tiny amount of money. And you think about what it takes to create that. It begins by stretching your mindset so it's a possibility. You know, like you were talking about, like really, really stretching the limits of the edges of what you believe you deserve or what's possible for you. And even that simple exercise of like stretching your idea of what a lot of money is, it's really, really powerful for you to step into a level of abundance so that you can receive it. Because if $1,000 is a lot of money, you'll never be able to be financially rich or successful. But if you can stretch that internally and get to the point where you feel like, wow, even $100,000, you know, is a little amount of money, then all of a sudden it opens up for all sorts of possibilities to be created in your life.
Yeah, I love that. And I've seen that in an experience of working, you know, because there's a difference in working with someone that's just getting started in their business and someone that's already has something established. But you see that money pattern show up in both, because someone that has already created a 6 or multi-6-figure business, a lot of times when the money conversation comes up, there's still junk. So even if they're at that point and they've created a lot and things are happening, and sometimes this is more outside of terms in coaching, I see this more of people that I'm working with that have, you know, agency type of businesses where they're doing a lot of outsourcing to grow. But the conversation that comes up when talking about their relationship with money oftentimes looks like, well, I wanted to make this amount of money because it would be enough. When they decided, you know, $200,000 a year, that's enough for me. So that's where I want to go. But without realizing that that declaration of $200,000 is enough money for me, so that's where I want to go, that's exactly why they aren't breaking that. Because their belief system is structured into just what's enough, what's still scarcity, what's still survival, what is enough to pay me and my employees and keep my family living and in the status that I want to live in and keep everyone happy. But there's still this limiting thing that's coming up about seeing what's truly possible and thinking that to get any further has to be like this crazy amount of like action or multiplying the outsourcing or all this stuff, when really, if we just go back to the belief system and looking at what if $200,000 a year was just a little in what you're saying, you know, and switching up that mindset.
Exactly. And this applies to everything else, right? Because people have a perception of how much fun they can have, or how much freedom they can enjoy, or how much they can travel, or how much love they can experience. And everyone's got like this specific like internal thermostat of like how much is too much, right? And what if we could stretch all those things? What if we could take those limiters off, you know, those tethers off of how much love we could experience and how much fun we could enjoy and how many amazing people we could attract and how much freedom we could create, like all of those things. And this is all part of, I call the process conscious lifestyle design, which is really stepping into really claiming and choosing that birthright of abundance that we all have been given, but haven't always chosen into. I believe that our life is ours to create, and for anything that you want, there's people that have created in the past. And so if they can create it, then you can too.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone that hears you talking about this concept of conscious living, and maybe they feel like they think about a 7-figure business, but something's blocking them and they can't figure out why it's not happening? Or maybe they're thinking about a 6-figure business and it just doesn't feel like a reality. Like they're listening to what you've said and they're trying to apply this principle and this practice, but it's not doing what they had hoped. What would you say to them?
Number one, I get it, because I've definitely been there, and I know everyone goes through that. We all have these goals and dreams. And if you were to ask anyone, how many of you would like to make $1 million a year? Everyone would raise their hand. Everyone wants it, right? Everyone wants to be able to travel more. Everyone wants to have that amazing, passionate love life. Everyone wants to have that healthy, sexy body, right? Wanting something and choosing to create it are two very different things. And what I just want to emphasize is the process begins by believing you can actually have it, and then by being that type of person that would create it. And so it really goes back to the beginning of like, okay, really feeling and owning, and there's a certain vibration or frequency to everything that you want to call forth and manifest in your life. Let's say it is, making $20,000 a month. There's a certain vibration of creation that would create that in a fun, easy, delightful way. And there's a certain energy and frequency to that love and passion that you want to experience and in a relationship, or there's a certain vibration and energy in terms of the house you want to manifest or whatever. And the process is really getting yourself tuned into what that energy is and going into the workshop of your mind and going through this process of, I call it creative visualization, where you just imagine over and over again and you feel it. You release any of the doubts, any of the fears, any of the story that says you can't have it. And you get to that solid belief that says, I already have it, and I'm bringing and calling it forth in my life. And then from that space, really the process is about being. Like, what are the daily choices you would take if that was your reality? Mm-hmm. There's lots of different healing modalities that are done. I know you do some really powerful quantum healing, but for me, it really comes down to aligning with that energy of creation on a repetitive basis over and over and over again until it becomes your core mode of operating. And like the moment that vibration is just who you are, the things will come easily into your life. Like I was thinking back to when I ran my first marathon, and it was so far outside of my comfort zone. It was so far beyond what I thought I could do. It was so far beyond anything that I really had any experience with, but I kept feeding the mind and seeing this picture in my mind and believing myself being, crossing that finish line of a marathon. Right. And so every day when I'd be running, I'd be focusing on this visual and I'd be feeling more and more alive. And what I noticed is after about 21, 30 days of like feeding this vision in my mind, there came a moment where this switch happened. And this is the important switch that's important. It's like there's certain habits that are required to create whatever result you want. And during the first 21, 30 days, it's a ramping up process. There is energy required to reinforce that vision over and over again in your mind. But there comes a point where the switch happens where it's easier to do the thing than to not do it. So for me, in terms of running the marathon, I think like 30 days in, I remember waking up, it was like 4:30 in the morning. And I woke up and my body was like hungering to go for a run. Like it wanted to go for a long run. Like it would have been harder for me to not run than to run. And that's the moment where success becomes easy, because my mind had been programmed as like, I'm a runner. And so for anyone that's like really shifting into that priority, it's not about saying, I want to make $100,000 this year. It's like, I do, this is just who I am. Like it would be impossible for me to not make over $100,000 a year. And for me, like, honestly, like $100,000 is such a tiny amount of money. Like my system could not create less than that because it's just shifted. But there was a time where that was such a huge, outrageous number, right? Just like running a marathon was such a huge, outrageous goal. But once again, when you feed your mind and practice those daily habits, there comes a switching point where it's easier to do the thing than to not do the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I found myself that I was trying to do that when I was first getting started in my coaching business and personal development. I was taking on all this information and learning and processing in these new modalities and just different, research and theories and all this kind of stuff. And it was not until I really cleaned out my own gunk to where I could truly implement what you're talking about right now. Because now that practice is easy. Now it's, it's easy to go there and it's easy to expand and it's easy to let myself go to that next phase and look at what's possible. And I think that's why the personal development journey is so important. If you want to be a coach, if you want to hold that space for other people, if you want to be the person that's helping someone else get to their next level edge and their fully fulfilled or high revenue life, whatever it is that you want to do in your coaching business. Some people are health coaches. Some people are lifestyle coaches. It really doesn't matter. But you have got to go through your own journey to be able to hold that space. It doesn't, you don't just wake up one day and say, I want to own a coaching business. Like, you have to do the mental work. And in my personal experience, I had to clean out the gunk before I could really see what was possible.
How did you do that? When you say clean out the gunk, like, what was your process for cleaning out the gunk so creation was easy?
Yeah, so it's essentially what we were talking about a couple minutes ago is really doing that belief work. I had a lot of personal mindset control stuff. I had a lot of limiting beliefs about what I thought was possible. And a lot of that was just steered back to childhood programming of what I was born into, what I grew up into. So looking at my business, even where my business is now, looking at that a year and a half ago and saying, this is possible. Energetically, my body would have rejected that. Like, I didn't know how to understand that was possible because the old programming was so deeply ingrained into that it was not possible. So it's like that stuff had to get removed before I could really embody what was. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that journey is the most important journey to take. It's like clearing out the gunk, right?
I didn't do it on my own. Like, there were people that helped me do that. Like, that was personal work.
We can't do it on our own. I mean, there's
yeah.
There's certain tools and processes we can learn that we can practice, on our own, but so much of it has to be like, you wouldn't give yourself LASIK eye surgery. You wouldn't.
Right.
Like there's professionals that specialize in helping with that process of the breakthrough and healing work. And it's important to lean into that and to invest in that process and to believe in yourself and as you go through the journey and just know, like, it's what you want wants you. Like, I really believe that what you wants you, but you have to get out of the wanting energy. The wanting energy doesn't create. The wanting energy keeps that thing distant from you. You have to get into the energy of being, allowing, receiving, and creating and just claiming, right? That's the energy you need to be in. And when you're in that energy of like, I want to lose 30 pounds, stop wanting to lose 30 pounds. Just be that person that's 30 pounds lighter. Just be them, right? What do they do different than this old version of you? And one of the quotes that I always say is, every word you think and every thought you think, every word you speak is a seed for creating your future reality. And what I mean by that is, we say, like, when is the best time to plant an apple tree? 20 years ago, right? Like 10 years ago. The second best time is now. Like, what we're experiencing currently what you're currently experiencing in your life right now is the fruit of what you planted, what you spoke, and what you did years ago. And so if you want your future to be different, it requires you to start speaking different and start thinking different and start acting in a different way. But if you do that and hold vision of that fruit that you're creating, that apple tree that you're planting right now, and you keep nurturing and developing and honoring that plant and giving it life, not like abandoning it when it doesn't give fruit after a month, like if you keep doing it, then you will have that fruit. It's inevitable, right? As long as you're planting the right seeds and nurturing them in the right way, then the fruit's on its way. But you have to keep nurturing it and believing that it already is long before the fruit appears in reality.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think that the really important part to emphasize on everything that you just said, because all of it was important. When you're just getting started, sometimes it can be really difficult to hear something like that and then not put all of your energy into that alone. And from that place, you end up putting force into your business. So as I see that sometimes, so people just getting started and trying so hard to live into this next phase that they end up not living in the present. So it's like a very beautiful balance of the masculine and feminine, of knowing and setting out the intention, like, this is what I'm aiming for. This is what I'm going for, but I'm really here to be and to enjoy and to receive, versus like being in that state all the time of like, I'm going to feel as if it's already happened like 100% of the time, because then if we're doing that, we get a little mixed up on like how we're actually showing up. And I found, I don't know about you, but I found that there's a really beautiful balance into how to show up as if something's already happened, and how to show up from that place of surrender and receiving and putting great energy out into the world, and it being very different from always trying to exist as if something is coming. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote that a lot of people say, which is like, fake it till you make it, and I mean, I don't believe in faking anything. I just think be it until you have it, right? Just like there's a space of like owning who you are before the results might show up, right? Just to believe that you're already that millionaire, and the universe is just in the process of depositing that money in your bank account. But when you believe you're a millionaire, you operate different, you walk different, you think different, you talk different. Like there's this different level of confidence that exudes from you, which makes it so much easier for you to create from that energy. But when you believe that you're broke and you want to be a millionaire, then you'll keep creating from the energy of poverty and scarcity. And so it's not about faking it till you make it. It's just about being it before you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to tell people that are listening to this podcast today any last words of advice or insight that you feel you want to share, what would that be?
Just work with Mallory. That's my advice. Just hire Mallory. Hire Mallory to help you clean up your mindset. Hire Mallory to help you with your business. I'm not joking about that. Like seriously, like if you're following Mallory, like make sure you get in her inner circle. Do whatever you can to tap into her, because she's on this path and on this trajectory, and Mallory's up to big things. And there's a couple things. The reason why I say that, number one, is the value of being in proximity with other powerful creators, right? When you're around other people that have a high vibration, when you're around other people that are up to big things, naturally you take on more of that vibration. The quote that we hear over and over again is, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most, right? And it's not even the people you hang around physically the most, but who you spend your time with. And for anyone that's actually investing their time to listen to this podcast, they're gaining that vibration that Mallory exudes, right? Like they're taking on that energy of abundance simply because they're receiving that. And so it's really, really important that you are careful about who you're listening to and the people you're spending your time with, whether physically or, virtually, because those people will impact you. But then the second thing is like, there is a reason why we have coaches and mentors in our life, right? No professional athlete in the history of the world has ever won the Super Bowl without a coach, has ever won any championship. You know, Tiger Woods, when he was at the top of his game, had like 6 different coaches he was working with. Like everyone that creates success has those mentors or people that are with them. And Mallory, you just happen to be gifted at really helping people shift their mindset and also to give them the skills to create what they want, not just in business, but everything else. And so, yeah, my advice seriously is you can't do this on your own. Don't try to. Like, you're not meant to. You shouldn't try to. Like, if you're feeling overwhelmed and think, oh my gosh, there's a lot of good ideas, but how do I actually implement this? Hire Mallory. Find whatever she's creating and plug into that. You know, listen to the podcast, go to her events, you know, reach out to her and see what it would look like for you to coach or mentor with her. But like, hire Mallory to support you in the journey. And I promise, like, there's some people that think that coaching is expensive. But I'll tell you what's expensive is not having a good coach. Like, it's, if people that have the do-it-yourself mentality, that is the way to doom yourself to have the hardest, most expensive, most time-consuming path to probably never actually even get the result you want. Yeah. Right? Hiring a coach, however, even though there's going to be an investment, and it's going to be a big investment, it is the cheapest, fastest, and easiest way to ensure that you make the progress you're meant to make. And so, yeah, so that's my advice, Mallory. Totally
well, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that, but thank you so much. I take that in seriously because, you know, you've been doing this longer than I have. You've got a lot of stuff going on. So having that be your feedback, like, I really, really, really appreciate that and take that in high regard. If someone's listening to this and they feel inclined to reach out to you, how would you suggest that they do that?
So there's 2 things. Obviously, you can follow me on Facebook, Gerald Rogers, or you can go to my website, geraldrogers.com. If anyone is interested and they're like, it's my time to like really step into higher creation, and you do want some support, like, I would love to just have a conversation. And you can go to coachwithgerald.com to set up a free complimentary 30-minute like conversation. Total no pressure, but we're going to really look at what's going on in your life, where you want to go, and just, I mean, if there's a way genuinely I can support you, I'm happy to explore that. I love what I do in my work. I love helping people change their lives, and I love facilitating events and transformational experiences. I love it, and Mallory, if they're a part of your world, I know that I'd love them too, and so I'd love to share my gifts in whatever way that looks like. So just reach out to me. Like, I'm happy to see how I can serve you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We all appreciate your time and your insight, and you always have such value to give, and just the words that come through, you're always so profound and full of really, really great energy. So thank you for your time and coming on here today. We really, really, really appreciate it.
You are amazing. Thank you guys so much. And just remember, you got one life to live. Live big.
Awesome. All right, guys, we will see you next week. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening. As you put these concepts and practices into action, you'll begin to see the benefits of living an abundantly clear life. To connect with Mallory and other high performers, join the Abundantly Clear Entrepreneurs community on Facebook or visit mallory-nicole.com.